Welcome to episode 435 of Salcedo Paranormal, and tonight I am sharing true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, and that is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Thank you all for listening, whether you are here for the live streams or you listen on the podcast or YouTube feeds, or if you listen on the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting. There you can hear replays of 2 episodes of the show every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and right before Troubled Minds Radio comes on. I always want to thank Michael Strange, host of Troubled Minds Radio, and Liam Martin, host of the Exiled Minds podcast, for producing my show and putting it up on the station. If you'd like to support the show, there are a few different ways to do that. You can always share the show with others and rate and review it on your podcast platform of choice. Also, if you are into paranormal fiction or nonfiction books, you can find some of those that I have written over on Amazon. I also have a Patreon now where you will be able to find one extra episode of the show every month, more true paranormal stories from the web. And that will be available at all levels, all tiers. And that'll be happening again once a month, at least to start with, maybe more once I can figure out how to do more, if that's possible. So, and also I have direct donation links if you just want to make a one-time donation through PayPal and Venmo, as there are expenses to doing the show in equipment and research materials, and then also travel. Again, I'm going to be at the Mid-Michigan Paracon this year, November 4th and 5th, over at the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. That's a weekend, a Saturday and Sunday. To check it out for the first time and hopefully meet up with anyone that happens to be able to go and check it out. Basically, see what a Paracon is like. I've never been on before. And then come back and share my thoughts on it and hopefully some recordings as well. So I think that takes care of everything for now. Again, thank you all for being here. And with that, I can get to the stories here. So this first one says... let me see here. Okay. This first one says, I used to be skeptical about the supernatural and paranormal. I live in a well-populated area of northwest Louisiana, but there is a remote, desolate area, accessible by continuing down a highway and crossing train tracks near me. This remote area has abandoned buildings and only one gas station. While driving through the abandoned area, I saw something on the right side of the road. The creature was tall, pale, had long limbs, and yellow eyes, similar to a cat or a coyote when a light shines on them. The creature moved incredibly fast, too fast for a human. It crossed the road in front of the car and disappeared behind an old building. The creature had a human-like appearance, but didn't seem human. I was frightened enough to drive faster and leave the area. The experience caused my eyes to well up with tears. Does anyone else know what I saw? So that's the end of that story. Sounds like they saw some kind of a creature. I don't know what kind. Reminds me, I believe it's rake. That's the name of the creature that sounds similar, but either way, it sounds like it moved really fast, way too fast for it to be a person, like they said. So I don't know, but really amazing sighting there. And seems like a lot of times when I find these stories of people that see things on the side of the road, it's more in natural environments, in like the woods. But this is odd because it's in the middle of an area with buildings, but again, they're apparently abandoned. So makes me wonder about areas like that where there's no one around most of the time. Does that mean that at different times, some of these creatures, whatever they are, just other various beings around the world, they sometimes either stay in or pass through these areas where maybe somehow they know that there's not anyone there. And it sounds like if that's the case, then maybe this creature was just as surprised to see the car and the driver as the driver was to see it or them. So really neat sighting there. It takes the usual side of the road sighting situation and puts it in a different setting from what I've read before. So wanted to share that because I think that's the first time I've encountered that kind of a setting in a story. So yeah. So in the chat here, hello everyone in the chat. Rohan says, "Wow, there's even a 2014 horror movie called The Rake Creatures." Yeah, if you look it up online, you can find images of it. And it is sort of what the writer described there, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And so yeah, if you look that up and just put in like Rake cryptid, RAKE, and then cryptid or something like that, you might find more images that you can check out that way. So again, like I said, a lot of times I can't get over that fact that that was in a area that at least at one point was probably active. There had people in it a lot more, and now it's just not as active. And it just makes me wonder. And I mean, it's not the only time I've ever heard of sightings of strange things in sort of town or city like environments, but I don't think I've heard of that particular kind of a creature described in that kind of an area. I guess is what I'm surprised me in this story. So moving on to the next one here. This one says, "Back when my friend and I were around 13, we were waiting for our rides home in a quiet and empty school parking lot. We decided to play a game where one person drew something and the other guessed what it was. As my friend started drawing, I heard a woman's voice whisper, 'Gate,' behind me. I turned to look but found no one there and realized it couldn't have been my friend. Surprised, I guessed, 'Gate,' and my friend was shocked by how quickly I guessed. I explained that I heard a voice behind me, but my friend didn't believe me. It was surreal and unforgettable." And that's where that story ends. So it sounds like some other being there, possibly, with maybe telepathic abilities. I wonder if if it was that close, then maybe the writer heard that voice more in their head than outside. But they just sort of figured it was outside because it had to be, using sort of logical, non-paranormal thinking there. But then also the other reason why I wonder about telepathy of some kind is how quickly the writer was able to guess, thanks to that extra information there that they didn't have on their own yet. As the friend was making the drawing, I think, is also amazing. So, was this other entity able to sort of see into the mind of the person? Or again, we don't know what time is like. And I've heard time doesn't really exist for non-physical entities, whether it's spirits or other beings. Who knows what is all out there. So maybe they already sort of saw what was being drawn and could sort of see into that really near future, and just decided to see what would happen if they provided the information and just wanted to see how the people would react. Really amazing story there, just in the how quickly it happened, and to me the suggestion there of some kind of either telepathy or something to do with time, or both, and some other being there. So, I wonder though. I don't know. It doesn't sound like it could have been the writer themselves talking back to themselves. I don't think. If they didn't, then that's maybe they did. I don't know. But that is an odd one there. I wonder about the history of the area as well. Of course, it doesn't really say, and I don't blame anyone. But if that's like a one-off thing, that's really amazing. So that's another quick one there, but really, really neat story there. So, moving on to the next one here. Let's see here. Okay. Let me see. Okay, there we go. This one says, there was a lot of paranormal activity in my childhood home. I had a friend who shared my interest in the paranormal, who visited the house to experience it when we were teenagers. They claimed to see a man walking up and down the stairs, and the stairs creaked accordingly. I didn't see anything, but I did hear the stairs creaking. After I went and dropped my friend off at their home, their own house, I'm guessing they must have been late teenagers, and returned to ours, I saw a figure at the kitchen window. I thought it must have been my mom, but then I realized my parents' cars were not in the driveway. So I called my parents, who dismissed it as me being weird. But it was real and frightening enough to me. I wondered if the figure in the window was the same man mentioned by my friend, or someone else. This was the only time I ever saw a figure in the window. So that's where that story ends. It's another one of those where it seems like you have this person with a sensitivity that is able to tell where someone else is, whether it's a spirit or someone in another time. But then you have the writer, who is maybe not so sensitive, still hearing the stairs creaking as if someone was walking down them. So maybe they are sensitive, more so than they think, or it was just that obvious. And then it sounds like they saw someone after. So sounds like there's activity in their home. Whether they're still there or not, I don't know. But I'd be curious about any other things that may have happened there. Sounds like maybe the parents never experienced anything if they were writing the kid off, off the story of the kid, which is sad in a way that they did that. But yeah, neat story there. And a lot of times when you hear, see things on TV or whatever, which is TV, obviously, or when you read stories wherever, you only have sort of the one person who is sensitive saying that they're sensing a person going from one place to another in a location. but there's nothing else going on that everyone else can then also experience. So that one is neat there, that there were sounds associated with what the friend of the writer was sensing. So neat story there, and experience, a couple of experiences around the same time. I'd wonder about what else may have happened there before or after. Because I do think sometimes you hear about places where there's just one or two things and then nothing. And to me, that makes me wonder about people or other entities just passing through. And I do believe, again, I've had that happen, where I had a older couple just talking and moving through the apartment, even though I couldn't see them and didn't hear any footsteps or anything like that. But I just heard the sounds of a conversation between a man and a woman, and as if they were walking through this area where this apartment complex is, where I live. But to them, it didn't exist, I guess. I don't know. And they were just passing through. And they passed through the front of the apartment, all the way through to the back and out. And we're heading towards a nursing home that is nearby. So, and that's just one example of sort of a passing through, traveling spirits or entities or whatever. And again, I think it's possible that they were just in another level of reality. They weren't necessarily spirits or ghosts or whatever. They were just people. And for whatever reason, I was able to hear them as they were moving through. There is I don't know what kind of a device it is, but there's like a power junction box or something in the ground in the backyard behind my place. So I always wonder if that has something to do with some of the activity here at times. Anyway, I think I've talked about that before in several different shows, so I'll stop with that. But moving on to the next story. Let me see, I have to scroll down. Okay. And here we have another story of sounds. This one says, I was in my room with my dog, watching something on my computer. I heard my mom calling my name, and my dog reacted to it as well. I assumed my mom had arrived at home and responded to the call, but only heard a muffled response. I let my dog out, called to my mom again, and received another muffled response. I told my mom that I couldn't hear her and would be downstairs shortly. Once I got downstairs, I discovered that my mom was not home, and my dog appeared to be confused. This is the second time I have heard my mom's voice when she wasn't there. The first time occurred late at night, when I was alone. At this time that it happened, I dismissed it as my imagination, but now I question it due to my dog's reaction and the timing of the second incident. My mom has also mentioned hearing my own voice when I'm not at home, but I haven't discussed it in detail with her. I have lived in this house for over 10 years, and have only experienced occasional objects falling unexpectedly, but nothing else paranormal has happened. And that's where that story ends, so nothing else except for voices, apparently. And so much so that the dog registered the voice, heard the voice. Again, whenever there's animals involved, there's no bias there. There's no pretense that people will put up sometimes, or try to dismiss it as not being anything. I think animals, dogs and cats and everything, they either sense things or they don't, and there's no acting there. And so yeah, it sounds like the writer heard something several times there that in that second encounter, and the dog heard it as well. So makes me wonder if only we could interview the dog and find out if it saw anything or not down there once it went downstairs before the writer did. But and then of course objects moving around, that can be part of it or not. It's hard to tell, but it sounds like a fairly active place there. So really amazing. The voices, I always wonder about that. I think I used to always think, oh well, it must be some entity that is playing around or copying voices for some reason. But as I was looking more into the paranormal, I started finding this idea that there can be different periods of time that somehow overlap. So maybe it wasn't necessarily someone there trying to get the writer's attention or the writer's mom's attention when she was hearing the writer. It's more of their voices from other time periods, and or even just themselves from other time periods somehow coming through, and they're hearing those voices of their own. They're hearing their own voices from different time periods. Again, just due to who knows what natural environmental factors with energy and all that. But yeah, neat story there. And there's been a couple times over the years where I've thought I've heard voices, but then I've haven't heard anything else around, like as far as people moving around when I've heard them around my apartment. And because it's so small, I can usually hear when people are moving around outside. If they're right outside the building or whatever, I can usually hear that pretty well. So I don't know if that's anything paranormal or just the way things are, but again, have that power box there, and all the activity I've had in my apartment over the years, so it's hard to say. But yeah, so let me see it. Let me look at the next story here. See if I can fit it in. All right. Yeah, I think we can do this. Let me see here. Maybe not. Yeah, I better not. So I will save this and the rest of the stories for another time. So yeah, sounds are amazing because just when you hear things, you can usually tell where they're coming from. I said this before too with my apartment. There are times when I hear bumps and bangs and I can easily pinpoint where they're coming from. And usually it's outside or sometimes on the roof of the building. But then there are other times I'll hear things and it sounds like they're coming from inside here, but I can't trace exactly where they're coming from. And those are the times I think that it's something maybe to do with the paranormal, because with my ears as sensitive as they are, in this place being at the size that it is, which is not huge, I think that there's something going on there. Yeah, Rohan says, yes, humans have great 3D hearing thanks to the earlobes there. Okay, so yeah. And, of course, as a lot of people that listen to the show know, I'm legally blind, so I pay attention to what I hear all the time. So, but yeah, that's going to do it for today. Thank you all for listening and being here. I will talk to you all on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care.